Hello, I'm Jeremy, and welcome to the first episode of my new podcast, RevUs. This is a show where, similar to how a lawyer defends his or her client, I will defend movies that I like, but most other people don't like and or has gotten mediocre to bad critical reception. And if you disagree with any of my opinions, fine. These are just my opinions. I'm not forcing you to see these movies the way I see them. And even if you don't agree with my opinions, I at least want you to understand why I like these movies, even though most others don't. Now here's how things will work. First, I'll tell the story of the movie I'm talking about in order to familiarize audiences who are unfamiliar with the film and better put things in context. Then I'll talk about the details of the movie and why I like it so much. Okay, now that all that's out of the way, let's discuss the first movie I plan to cover. My favorite Marvel movie, Howard the Duck. Yes, really. Howard comes from a world where everyone is an anthropomorphic duck. One day, while sitting in his apartment and reading the latest issue of Play Duck, the room starts to shake, and Howard discovers he can't get out of his chair. Soon, Howard and his chair get sucked out of the apartment, crashing into a bunch of rooms, and Howard gets pulled out of his chair and travels throughout the universe. He then ends up on Earth and meets a rock star named Beverly and a museum janitor named Phil. The three work together to get Howard back home, as well as battle a monster that arrived to Earth the same way Howard did. The first reason I like Howard the Duck is that it has something most other Marvel movies don't have: personality. Aside from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, every MCU film feels bland and forgettable. Marvel fanboys are right when they say not every Marvel movie is the same film, but they feel like they're the same film because regardless of plot, they have the same characters, standard action, mainstream standard jokes, tone, and effects, and a story so complicated and interwoven that you don't care. Problems that do not apply to Howard the Duck. Howard the Duck is a beast all its own. It's crazy, silly, weird, and campy. Unlike the MCU films, which try too hard to appeal to a mainstream audience, Howard the Duck is a film that just wants to be weird, different, and cool. Also, the characters are really well written. Howard is a good fish out of water type character. He has a fun, cynical, wisecracking attitude, but is still a kind and likable character. I've heard complaints that Howard is unlikable, but I don't see that at all. He wisecracks and has aggressive solutions to problems, but he's still a kind duck. Heck, Howard meets Beverly by saving her from two thugs simply because it's the right thing to do. That being said, there's one scene where Howard is uncharacteristically unlikable. After the museum scene, a bunch of kids think Howard is a museum attraction and start touching him. Howard then tells them to go away and scares them, which makes sense as they were annoying Howard and treating him like a curiosity to be gawked at. However, he then snaps at Beverly, which feels completely uncalled for, because Beverly was the one person who was kind to him and wanted to help him. Phil just wanted to use Howard for his own personal gain, and everyone else was scared of him. But there was no reason for Howard to No reason Howard would snap at the only person who was kind to him while he was in a foreign universe. Aside from that, Howard is likable, funny, and a fantastic main character. Speaking of which, let's get to Beverly. Like I said before, Beverly was the only person who was kind to Howard. Phil and Howard develop a sort of friendship by bonding together to save Beverly from the Dark Overlord, but that doesn't happen until the climax. She's a really likable character and develops a strong bond with Howard. She's also very strong and confident, which can be shown in the opening scene where before Howard rescues her, she tries punching the thugs. She's a strong character who has great chemistry with Howard. Not much to say. Next, there's Phil Blumberg. Phil is my favorite character. Tim Robbins was clearly having the time of his life when he was playing this character. He's an incredibly over-the-top, cheesy delivery that is insanely entertaining to watch. That line he says when he first sees Howard is, in my opinion, one of the most quotable movie lines of all time. "This is amazing. Man's oldest fantasy. Across a sea of stars. Look! Up in the sky? It's a bird! It's a plane! No! It's a duck. Oh. Okay, not only that, but there are a couple other funny moments with Phil. Like when Phil gets arrested and he tells Howard that he's excited now that he has a criminal record. And when he tries to pluck Howard's feather. Despite his obsessive manic attitude, Phil is still a really likable character and is incredibly fun to watch. Okay, finally, let's talk about the villain, the Dark Overlord. You see, after the scientists discover how Howard came to Earth, they try to recreate it in order to send Howard home. But they accidentally brought back an evil alien, simply named the Dark Overlord. He then attacks the lab and possesses one of the scientists, Dr. Jennings, played by Jeffrey Jones. The Dark Overlord is a fantastic villain. He's really menacing and entertaining, and Jones does a fantastic job of capturing the evilness and humor of the character. And when he's out of Jennings' body, even though he doesn't talk anymore, he has a menacing and creative design perfectly suitable for the cheesiness of Howard the Duck. Next is the humor. Let's address the elephant in the room, the duck puns. In many sequences in the film, especially the opening scene, there are many duck puns, which is one of the reasons a lot of people hate this movie. Personally, I like the duck puns. Puns are one of the hardest kinds of humor to pull off, because they get old fast. So if you want to put a lot of puns in your movie, you need to be really clever and creative with them. And in my opinion, Howard the Duck manages to do just that. In the opening scene of the film, we get to see glimpses of Howard's duck world, and it's really creative. They managed to use these stupid duck puns and create a whole interesting world. And in my opinion, the puns are a perfect combination of funny and stupid, and we don't hang out with the puns long enough for them to be annoying. But there are many other ways this movie is funny. Howard's wisecracks provide a lot of good laughs, and the background and supporting characters have a lot of funny reactions to Howard, ranging from over-the-top scared to hilariously nonchalant. And there's a couple of funny lines, like when the Dark Overlord says what planet he's from, Howard says, "What's that, a suburb of Cleveland?" Also, that scene between Howard and the job lady is absolutely hilarious. The jokes aren't laugh-out-loud funny, but they are pretty amusing and worthwhile. And now let's get to the other two elephants in the room. The first is the duck tits scene. For those who don't know, when Howard gets sucked out of his apartment, he crashes into a bunch of rooms, one of which is a bathroom where a female duck is taking a bath with her boobs fully exposed. This is one of the few criticisms of Howard the Duck that I actually agree with, because it doesn't make sense why that scene would be in there. It's irrelevant to the plot. It could have easily been switched for another scene. It was a waste of money considering the effects that need to be on it, you know. And there shouldn't be boobs in a kids movie. Although, to be honest, it's really debatable whether Howard the Duck counts as a kids movie. That being said, it isn't enough to ruin the movie. Is it disturbing? Yes. Is there no reason for it? Yes. But it's over fast. It's like the toenail scene in House Fancy. We're talking about, but over in a few seconds. And now let's talk about a certain other scene. The scene where Beverly and Howard flirt. On the one hand, this scene is incredibly uncomfortable. Especially when Howard's hair sticks up like a... But on the other hand, I think that was their intention. I don't know if this is what they were going for, but my theory is that around the time they were writing this scene, the writers realized that Howard and Beverly were acting like a couple in a romantic movie. So they played into that by making the flirting scene, which I think made fun of the idea of Howard and Beverly being romantically involved and how horrifying that would be. Finally, let's talk about the special effects. They are awesome. Sure, they're not on par with Jurassic Park, Mars Attacks, or a certain science fiction film that people wanted Howard the Duck to be simply because they were both made by George Lucas, but they're still pretty good. They look impressive and capture the cheesiness of Howard the Duck well. The makeup on Jeffrey Jones as he's possessed by the Dark Overlord looks really creepy and cool. The prosthetic puppet for the Dark Overlord's true form is fantastic. Effects on the weapons, the flying shots, Howard fighting and flying into space, you can clearly see the effort on display. In conclusion, Howard the Duck is a fantastic, campy, weird movie. It got a huge cult following over the years, and I am glad. The only reason it bombed was because people expected it to be another Star Wars simply because George Lucas was involved. Well, that and a few other things, but still. The characters are fantastic. The humor is fun and witty. The action is great. The acting is good. The effects are phenomenal, and there's more innovativeness and creativity in Howard the Duck's first 4 minutes than there is in the MCU films' entire runtimes. Sure, the failure of Howard the Duck gave us Pixar, but I will still always love this movie. Howard, you are one good duck. That's all for now. Join me next time when I talk about a 1993 martial arts comedy classic from New Line Cinemas, starring Ernie Reyes Jr. and Rob Schneider. See you then!